are talking with Robin Madsen from Foundations for Living today. Thanks for coming on, Robin.
Hi, Joni.
Hi. We actually are going to do something a little bit special and pretty close to my heart today. And we have you on and we talk about trying to give people a step up. Let me help you out of the situation that you're in and help you get into a job so you can get into a house and you can do all of the things that you want to do. When my brother Mike was in his early to mid 20s, from the time he graduated from high school, he essentially was homeless. He just kind of floated around. And he is going to be introduced in this segment in a couple of clips. But he ended up in Salt Lake City, Utah, where a reporter did a segment on the street people and just so happened to do a segment and interview my brother Mike about 3 months before he was murdered with a railroad spike through his throat. So after that, I had a cousin in Utah that had seen the thing, so we were able to get this tape, which is pretty special to have this as a remembrance of my brother. When I talk to you from Foundations for Living and we talk about what can we do? What can we do to help? What can we do to help get people out of the system and into the independent lives that they want? I mean, that is something that is, it's pretty special to me. And you're coming at it from the focus of trying to give people a step up instead of a handout.
Right. Yeah, because it's not doing any good to just, it's like giving him a fish opposed to helping him learn how to fish.
Right.
In order to be sustainable.
Right. And we're going to take a look at this clip right now because my brother talks about how difficult it is to get a job.
Actually, I never lived in a place like this. I've been on the street. I don't like living like this. I'd rather be working. Rather be working full time and getting on my feet. But the problem is you got to have a start. You got to start somewhere. And you can't start like this.
10 years from now, what is it?
10 years from now, I hope to be settled down, maybe married, have my house. Nothing like this.
How can this get you there?
Well, first, this ain't gonna get me to there. But sooner or later, I guess, if you travel enough, or you travel and you look around and try to find a job or whatever, sooner or later, you're bound to come up with something.
So as we watched that, and we listened to that, that's not something that ever would have occurred to me because I have always had a house. I've always had a shower. But it's difficult. And I know that you know someone who is really struggling to get out of the system and get a full-time job and is stuck kind of in that middle ground where he can't get a job, so he can't get ahead, but he doesn't want to stay where he's at, correct?
Right. Correct, yeah. He's got a few obstacles and a few barriers in his way. One of them is that he's close to 60 years old. So getting a job at that age is always difficult. The other one is that he's got a record. He's a felon, so he has a felony on his record. But this gentleman is the hardest worker I know. He walks probably about 4. He did finally get a job at one of the local fast food restaurants here, but he walks 3 to 4 miles every day just to get to work because he doesn't drive, just to get to work. And he does it with a smile on his face. I mean, he's always upbeat and cheerful and never complaining and just the hardest worker I've ever known.
And sometimes we get so caught up in who you were that we don't talk about who you're going to be. And Mike talks about, in his interview, he talks about there being a lot of people that will help, and yet there's not a whole lot of people that'll give you a chance to start over.
Sure.
Do you find that in the Waupaca area where you're working with people who are really trying to leave that person behind, become someone else, and they can't get past that barrier?
Yeah, absolutely. Because especially for people, I'm just gonna talk a little bit about people with certain felonies, sex offenders, who have to be on the sex ed registry. Now, I'm not talking about pedophiles. I'm not talking about those creepy people that you really want to be afraid of. I'm talking about those kids who are just thinking, you know, nothing ever happens to me, right? I can just do this and it'll be good. But unfortunately, if you're 18 years old or 19 years old and have sex with a 15 or 16-year-old, you are a sex register. You have to be on the sex registry for the rest of your life. And that follows you. The other population that I think really struggles is those people who have addictions. I don't think we understand totally what it's like to have an addiction. And just like those people who are coming out of prison and jails, the stigma of, you know, it's like that big old red L on somebody, or the whatever it is, that letter who says she's an adulteress, that they wear around all the time. And they can never get past that. Nobody takes a chance to see me or to see them and who they are and listen to their struggles and listen that you know what, they're just like we are.
So how do we change that? I mean, how do we as a society and as Waupaca residents, because you work with people who are, I mean, and you don't work necessarily just with the homeless, you work with a lot of people in transition,
Right.
with your transition housing.
Right.
What can I do as a citizen of Waupaca that will help these people who are really trying to change their lives have the chance that they need? Because it isn't about giving them food or shelter. It isn't about giving them anything. What is it about?
It's about giving them a chance. It's about giving them hope. It's about seeing them as no different than you and I. Part of it, I think, for the community of Waupaca and for myself and my learning is just getting beyond the stuff, you know, whatever it is that they're dealing with, and just sitting down and listening. Just having an open heart and an open mind and an open ears to just listen. Understand what are your goals? What do you want to do? What are your dreams? What are the obstacles and the barriers in the way? And is there something that I can do? Is there some skill or talent that I have that can help you, that I can walk alongside with you? I don't want to just give you things. How can we work together? How can we work together? Because, you know, the reality is we are, as taxpayers, we are paying for people who are homeless. In the prison systems, the jail systems, in the social services systems, we are paying for that.
And we're paying for the system.
We are.
And we were talking about this before we went on air, that in 1983, when this was taped, and Mike and some of the other people that were on this show talked about the system and trying to get out of the system. When we talked about it, you said that the system has completely changed
Oh, it has.
in the last 30 years.
It has.
So has it gotten better or worse?
I think it's gotten worse.
How so?
Well, I was sharing with you that I have a 37-year-old daughter, and I was a single mom when I was 20 years old. And I had a high school graduate, or a high school diploma, and I had supportive families, but I didn't want to live with my family the rest of my life. I had a child to support, and I wanted to be a good mom and a good supporter of that child. So there was a program there called AFDC where I was able to get an apartment, get schooling, childcare paid for, help with food for a certain period of time while I went back to school. Now, it wasn't just a handout. It was a certain period of time for a certain specific reason so I could go back to school. I was able to then get off of the welfare system and get a job here at the Foundry. That's what brought me here.
And AFDC no longer exists.
It does not. It does
and
not.
I was familiar with that program. So when you're stuck in the system, and in today's system, what what sticks you there? What keeps you in that system instead of being able to move? Because let's face it, talk to somebody about where their tax money is going, and there is a rash of, we're tired of supporting people who don't feel like getting a job. And there are those.
There are, but they are the minority.
So instead of complaining about a system that does this, you know, how do we change something on a personal level? Because I probably can't walk into the White House today and change a law, but how can I change something on a personal level that will allow the people who don't want to be stuck in the system to get out? Because I've talked to people, and again, Mike, and you know, he talks about getting stuck in that system and not being able to get out.
Yeah, because that's how I survive. You know, it's like, for me, it's like kind of being stuck in a job that I don't really like, but it puts food on my table, and I know I have to stay there, and I'd much rather be in this dream job and this other thing that I'm really passionate about and I really love to do, but I can't because I have to stay in this job, because if I quit this job, I don't have an income.
Well,
So for them, for many people, that is their income, and that's what they need to do in order to feed their families. Now, if I don't have, if I don't have a high school diploma, or if I don't have the job experience, or if I have some kind of a barrier, some kind like a drug addiction issue, or some prisoners, you know, some kind of jail felony or any kind of charge, then not only am I stuck here in this system, but I've got all of these other things that people look at me like I'm exactly what you said. I don't want to get out of the system.
you know, and the truth of it is that a lot of us have done the exact same things, we just didn't get caught.
This is true. This is true.
Let's face it. And you know, I don't know that I've ever committed a felony,
But why not?
but it's but it's one of those things where the difference between many of us, because none of us are perfect, just because I've never been in jail doesn't mean that I've never done anything that couldn't have gotten me there. You know, from
Absolutely.
driving drunk
Yeah.
to, I mean, let's name all of the things that people end up in jail. So I'm just kind of lucky that I'm not there.
Yeah.
So it's kind of, it's really too bad that we as a people tend to look down instead of across.
Yeah, exactly.
And you were saying that you do a lot of speaking in schools, and you always ask the kids a question. What's a question you ask them?
Well, first I ask them, what does it take for you to get ready for school in the morning? Think of all the things that you need to have in place in order to just get ready for school in the morning. You know, there'll be a lot of things. There's, for kids, especially the younger they are, they don't even think about, I need a home, I need water, I need, clothes to wear, things like that. So we talk about what it would be like not to have those things. And then I ask the question, well, when you think about homelessness, what do you think? What's the first thought that comes into your mind? Across the board, every single class that I go to says box cities, pushing around carts and things like that.
With all of their belongings
right,
in it.
everything in there. And then I ask, well, if you think of a homeless person, what thought comes to your mind? Smelly, dirty, drunk, no teeth, messy hair, all of that stuff. And that is stereotypical. That's a stereotype of what a homeless person, that is not. I mean, are there some like that? Absolutely. Maybe not so much here, but absolutely there are. But it's a minority.
So tell me what a homeless person in Waupaca looks like.
You.
In general.
You.
I could
Me.
be. I mean,
They look like you, they look like me, they look like Josh, they look like Chris, they look like everybody, because they look like people. They look like people. Everybody, they look like people.
and of course, there's your warming shelter that people can stay in. Some people sleep in their cars. Some people just hop couches from one friend to the other. So, I mean, is that in the city of Waupaca, because homelessness tends to be so, not invisible, but nearly
It is.
so?
Yeah, it really is invisible. I mean, because that is, we don't see it in the same way we do in some of the bigger cities. They don't have, if you go to the right places at the right time, you can see it, because there are some tent cities that happen in the springtime and in the fall. If you go to some of the campgrounds, they'll tell you which ones are. Yeah, but we don't see it as much as they do in the bigger cities.
Or like Salt Lake City.
Right, exactly.
And, you know, and we'll show a couple of clips. There's, I mean, you look at it, and my brother was living under a bridge, which are really kind of cool structures, because I saw it. But so, I mean, in this particular area, in a smaller city, it isn't something that is.
No.
So for us to say, you know, we don't have people that are living in the bridge, under a bridge, is an unfair way of saying we don't have a problem
Yeah, we do
with
too. We do.
homelessness or.
And part of it is, you know, that there's a housing shortage, you know, even because we've worked with people who have the opportunity to get a job. Well, no, they have a job and they have an opportunity to get an apartment, and we work with landlords to help with a non-residential, but there's just not any available, and then they're way too expensive. You know, so if I'm only making $900 to $1,200 a month, I can't afford to spend half of my paycheck on housing.
And again, you're stuck.
And I'm stuck.
Because
yeah.
you're starting at the beginning, but you can't start at the beginning because you can't afford an apartment, you can't afford a car, you can't afford, if you get an apartment, you can't afford food. And
Right.
even as a young person, I was like that. You know, out on your own, you know, bringing home $147 a week, and my rent was $300 a month. That was a huge.
Yeah.
You worked 2 and 3 jobs.
You
is
did.
what you did,
You did.
to try to put food on the
Yep,
table.
and if you have all of these
So-
barriers that you are, and all of these stigmas that you're carrying along with you, that the minute you walk in the door, it doesn't matter what your qualifications are, you're not even going to get an interview.
So here's what I think we need to do. I think that as people who are caring, and most of us are, and as people who want to help, and most of us do, then what we need to do is we need to spend a little bit of time understanding what is happening so that we can reach out. And I can't take blinders off if I'm not educated.
Right.
So you and Foundations for Living, which is right on Churchill Street, just as you get off of Highway 10, I know, or at least I'm pretty confident, that if I stop in there and say, teach me,
Oh, absolutely.
that there is somebody there that's going to sit down and they are going to talk to me until all of my questions are answered.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So what we really need to do then is we need to start by getting educated, because it's not a problem that we want. I mean, we don't want people to be homeless or to be living, to be transient. We don't want to be spending our tax dollars on those kinds of things. But in order to fix it, we need to start on the person level, and we need to start figuring out what the problem is so that we can start reaching out a hand and helping.
You know, yeah, and I think a lot of it has to do with being willing to think different, to take the assumptions that I have about what homelessness is about and why people are homeless, and put it aside and ask the questions. Find out, because I think there's a lot of fear there. Oh my goodness, what is this person going to do to me? And in my whole 4 years that we've been doing this, I was only scared once.
And there's, you know, as Mike says, you know, I don't have a choice but to be homeless. And even I have a hard time saying there are choices there. But having grown up with him, I also understand where he was coming from with that. And we see that with people saying, I don't have it, and what they're not saying that I don't have the ability, they're saying I am stuck.
Yeah, I am
So
stuck.
let's start with some education. So reach out to people that can help you understand what's going on, so that we can start giving people a helping hand, a hand up instead of a handout, and maybe we can make a difference in people's lives.
And if there's a group of people, whether it's from a church or an organization or just a neighborhood that wants to really is honest about, you know what, we really want to know the truth. We really want to know about this whole homelessness issue. Give us a call. I've got lots of people down there that are willing to come and tell their stories. I mean, you can hear it from me, but it's different when you hear it from somebody's mouth.
Always.
Of the journey of it's exciting to watch. It's exciting to watch them come in really hopeless, because homelessness is more hopelessness than anything else, and being given a chance and watch them journey through that. And it's hard work. I have a whole lot of respect for people who struggle and to get past those obstacles and those barriers, especially with prison or any kind of addiction. It is hard. You have to be vulnerable, you have to be honest, you have to put all your stuff out there. I can hide a lot of the stuff that I deal with. If you're coming out of in that situation with an addiction, you don't get to do that because people know.
Yep. Yeah, it's a tough, I mean, it's a tough spot to be.
It is.
And it's a tough thing to overcome, and people that do are, I mean, the strength and resilience is overwhelming. So, Robin, I am almost guaranteed telling you we will chat again.
I hope so. I hope so. I got lots to say.
Just because it's nice to have you on the show. Reach out, talk to Foundations for Living, give them a call. Let's get some education going, and maybe people like my brother Mike won't end up living in the streets until they die.
If they really want to know, we're having a banquet on March 31st. They can come and hear all kinds of information and truth.
Where's the banquet at?
At the Ale House.
There you go. Perfect excuse.
Give us a call.
An evening out.
It's only $10 and a roll of toilet paper.
Hey,
can't beat that.
I know. We do that with the Humane Society. It's a roll of paper towel, roll of toilet paper.
Yep.
Join us this week and every week for our guests on What's Happening Waupaca.